Terrariums are a fun way to display plants. They're perfect for small spaces, great for the novice gardener, and a good project to get the kids involved in. They're simple to make, I'll show you how. Terrariums can be either wet or dry. For a wet terrarium, you'll need some sphagnum moss, coir brick, indoor potting mix, activated charcoal, and some moss and stones for decoration. And for a dry one, grab a selection of coloured sand, activated charcoal, small pebbles, and larger rocks for interest. For a wet system, go for slow-growing plants with lush foliage, or small ferns, or try something different like a Venus flytrap or a bonsai. And for a dry terrarium, small succulents, cacti, and air plants are perfect. Dry terrariums are best planted in an open container, whereas wet terrariums can be either open or closed. A closed terrarium is pretty much like a mini greenhouse. The plants and soil inside release water vapor, which then trickles back down to the soil in a circular flow. They're basically self-nourishing and don't require much maintenance. Right, now let's start putting one together. I've got a nice large glass container. It's open topped, and we're going to be planting a wet terrarium. For my plants, I've chosen a variety of small textural plants. They're going to do really well in damp conditions, and they'll look great settling in together. I'm going to start by using a layer of sphagnum moss to line the bottom. Now you need to wet this first. We want to create a good 1 to 2 centimetre thick layer around the base. This is going to hold moisture and give us something to put our soil on. Now for my soil mix, I'm going to use a combination of indoor plant mix, coir brick, and activated charcoal. Now I've already got a few scoops of indoor plant mix in here. My coir brick has been soaking for about half an hour. You can break it up with your trowel. This is really great because it doesn't get too soggy, but it will hold in the moisture. Now we're going to add a few scoops of that into our plant mix. And lastly, I'm going to add in the activated charcoal. Now this is going to help keep the terrarium fresh by filtering nutrients as well as preventing algae growth and other problems. Now just give this a mix. We'll add it into our terrarium. Now a good tip, if you're only viewing your terrarium from one side, just slope your soil up, and that way you get a better view of your plants as they rise towards the back. Now before placing your plants in the terrarium, decide on an arrangement that you like. So I'm thinking this tall one towards the back, this little crawler up the front, and then the little fern off to the other side. Start with the largest one first. You may need to just tease the roots out a little bit. I'm just going to dig a hole, just using your fingers is probably the easiest, and pop it in. You need to be delicate. Pat it around the base of it gently, and then just do the same for the rest. Now once they're all placed, you may need to add a little bit more of your soil mix just around the top to help bed them in, and then just press that all down nice and firmly. Perfect. Now I'm going to finish mine off with some moss as a final softer green layer, and then I'll nestle a few stones in between. But you can add driftwood or little toys, whatever might suit at your place. You can create a terrarium any time of year, but some plants aren't always available. Indirect light is best, but they will grow in direct or artificial light. If you have a closed terrarium in direct sunlight, remove the lid so the plants don't get too hot. Water with a spray bottle, spraying dry terrariums every 1 to 2 months and open wet terrariums every 2 to 4 days. Because closed terrariums recycle their water, they only need watering once a month or so, but check the dampness beforehand. Feed with liquid houseplant food every couple of months for a wet terrarium and once a year for a dry one. You can use an insecticide spray on affected plants, but because they're relatively inexpensive, it's best to remove and replace them so they don't harm the other plants. Terrariums are pretty low maintenance. Trim ferns so they don't get too big, remove any yellow or brown leaves. And with closed terrariums, remove the lid occasionally to let in some fresh air. If you get algae on the side of the glass, just wipe it away with hot water, but it may be easier to remove the plants, clean and repot to keep everything nice and fresh. Terrariums are a great little project, and you can make them however you like to suit your place. Make sure to subscribe to the Mitre YouTube channel for more great content, or click here to watch more.